Hello, I'm Richard Murphy, and I want to talk about the most common question asked to any politician in the UK, or indeed right around the world right now, when they come up with some bright idea as to something they want to do. And that is, a journalist sits in front of them and says, how are you going to pay for it? What they presume is that if a government wants to do something that it hasn't previously done, it's constrained by a lack of money. Well, I want to explain to you that that's not true. Why isn't it true? Because governments make money. All the money that we have is created by governments. You can't print pound notes. You can't create pounds in bank accounts. Ultimately, only the government or a government licensed bank can do those things. And that's really important because it means that the government actually pays for what it does by spending into our economy. There's a really big point here. If you try to pay taxes, which is what most people think pays for things, without the government having first created the money that you're required to pay that tax in the UK, pounds, but if you were in the USA, dollars, and if you were in Europe, euros, if a government hadn't created that money in the first place, you couldn't pay your tax. Now, governments don't hand out piles of notes willy-nilly to people so they can pay their taxes. No, that's not what they do at all. They spend money into the economy. In other words, they go out there and they buy healthcare or education or criminal justice or whatever it might be, and they pay people, and when they paid them, they then ask for some of it back by way of tax. And the rest of us get our share of it if we aren't paid directly by the government, because the people who are teachers or nurses or doctors or judges or whoever else, police people, they then spend money and we get our share. Now the point is, how do we pay for it? First of all, it's therefore not from tax. Actually, the spending pays for itself by putting money into the economy. And the government's then got a choice about how it's going to take that money back. Why does it want to take that money back? Well, that's to control inflation. And that's really important because living in an inflationary environment is really unsettling. We know that. I mean, I lived through the 1970s when inflation hit 26% in the UK, and it was deeply unsettling for people because they didn't know what they were going to be paid next week. And if inflation runs really out of control, and very rarely it does, then whole economies can collapse. But I wish to stress it's incredibly rare. And that's because governments know they've got to take the money that they create back by way of tax. So they do. But they can also take it back in other ways. They can, for example, offer you the opportunity to save with them. And you actually know about that opportunity. It's called National Savings and Investments in the UK, and it includes things like premium bonds. If you are a pension fund, it includes buying government bonds, gilts as they're called. So actually, large numbers of people save with the government. At the moment in the UK, something like 1.4 trillion pounds is saved with the government. And by the way, we call that the national debt, but it isn't a debt at all, except in the sense that the government say to people, well, you can have your money back sometime. It's just the same as a bank does to anybody who deposits money with them. So that's the second choice about how a government can pay for things. They can have their own money back. What else can they do? Well, actually, of course, they can just create more money. And that's called quantitative easing. Now, I'm going to do a separate video to explain what quantitative easing is, but it's basically the government creating money to pay for its own activities. So any government really has at least three choices about how it balances its books. It creates the money to buy goods and services that it wants. It then cancels that money either by taxing or by asking us to save with it, or if it doesn't want to do either of those, it can actually increase the total money supply anyway by choice, and that's called quantitative easing. But how do we pay for it? Never by tax, because tax comes after the spend. Thanks for watching. We're going to explore these themes further in this video series. I know they're complicated, that's why we'll look at them again and explain them in different ways until people understand. Ask questions by all means, please. We'll try and deal with them. That's below here, or it's on my blog, Tax Research UK. You can ask me on Twitter, @Richard J. Murphy. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot.